Hello, everybody, and welcome again to a new episode of Analytics Mindset. I know it's been a very long time. If you follow my channel closely since the last time I post a video, there's multiple reasons for that, but I got my master's degrees. That is the positive one. But now I'm back, and we're going to go with a new certification for Microsoft. Without further ado, let's start. In this specific video, we're going to go through some very small tricks, some tips, and other study materials for the Microsoft Certified Power Platform Fundamentals exam. This exam goes by the code PL-900, and as a lot of the other certifications that I have posted in this video, it is provided by Microsoft, and it's also, more importantly, used to give you a boost in that new job that you want to get, career change, or just to get yourself out there and get you some more visibility with your leadership, etc. This exam, as you can see here, is when I passed it. I passed it in March 31st, 2024. You can also check in my LinkedIn if you want to verify that I actually passed it. And I passed it in March 31st. I know it's been quite a bit again, but I will still go through the materials and hopefully you will find this useful for you. The first one that I will put in the description is obviously this. This is the main page of the certification. It gives you a general information about what is the certification about, any resources that you may want to put on, etc. This exam, it's a beginner exam. You can see it's for the app maker role. It's very heavily focused on using Microsoft technologies to make applications, make front-end development through low-code or no-code methodologies. If you're not familiar with it, maybe because you come from a more programming-heavy or HTML background, this is not going to be a hard concept for you. Instead of needing to program, needed to put together your interface and test it as a UX designer, etc. The Power Platform in general allows you to do no code and low code modules to create your own stuff there. A little asterisk here is that Microsoft is not pushing their AI technologies a lot. There is a whole section dedicated to just how generative AI specifically is integrated in almost every single one of their products in their Power Platform. Expect a lot of that. The other big part of it that it's now there is the Microsoft database. You want to be familiar with those two because they are everywhere. I'm not even kidding. In almost every page, you will get it. It gets tested a lot, more as an option than anything else. But you just want to be familiar when is this going to be used, how am I going to be using it, and when, more importantly, I should not be using it. Because, again, it's almost in any single multiple choice question that you're going to get. It is just like that. With that being said, the overview of this is that you will need to understand the Microsoft Power Platform. You might be familiar with two of them. Personally, the ones that I was the most familiar with were Power BI and Power Automate. It is going to go through all the Power apps that are relevant for this certification. And you can see here how database is put it as something that is always over there, but how it supports everything. And Copilot, that it's just Microsoft application of ChatGPT, as much as Microsoft wants to distance it from it. It's just their own application of generative AI to the tools. You will be using the Power Apps for, again, low-code and no-code solutions. It also goes a little bit into process improvement. How do you make a business process or administrative process faster? Think about you may have to email a form every single week to a supplier, an external buyer, or one of your customers. How can you use the Microsoft tools like Automate, for example, can create automated flow that will trigger in a process and then you can create either through Pages or through Power BI, a dashboard or a website that your client can access. And that way, you don't need to be doing that every single time. That is an example of it. There is multiple examples of that. Not really complicated. Having some business acumen for sure helps. I will mention that. But you just want to make sure again that you understand when you should use these things and when it's appropriate for a given study or for just a given solution. That is the business value part of it. I will say that. The main ones that we're going to be looking at in this exam is Power BI, Power Apps, Automate, and Pages. For me personally, the biggest struggle was the difference between apps and pages. It gets clearer when you go to the actual material and you think about them, but for me, very bluntly, these two have a lot of overlap between the two of them. Depending on your background, you may find Power BI, for example, more daunting. It is a visualization tool. It is basically a comparator to Tableau. Power Automate. Yes, you can send emails, you can make things into tables. It has some overlap with both pages and apps and even with Power BI, but it's just automation, robotic automation, regular automation, etc. Now, how to prepare for this exam? As I said before, in multiple of my previous videos on certifications from Microsoft, Microsoft offers you a full course where you are going to be, and this is in the Learn Microsoft course, this is a full course where you don't need to pay a penny for it. All the information that you need to pass the exam is there. As you can see, for this given exam is 8 hours, 19 minutes. I would recommend you to go twice through it. The first one to just get a general feeling of it, and the second one just glance through it and see where you think you need to reinforce more or when you think you need to practice more, etc. At least from my perspective, that's all you need. Microsoft offers some additional resources, some instructor-led classes and events. I don't think that's necessary for this exam. You may consider it otherwise, depending on your situation, etc. But for this level, for the beginner certifications, I highly encourage you to use only this training material because it's also Microsoft official material for the exam. So we're going to go to the study guide, but before we go there, as all the beginner certifications at this given time, it may increase in the future. The price in the United States is $99. You may want to consider that if that is something that it might be a barrier for you. And it is also a proctor exam. You are going to need to be with a camera and yes, somebody looking at you all the time and you won't be able to talk to anybody. Be careful with that. There is a lot more resources here. We're going to go to the study guide and to the actual materials. You have the exam replay. Again, I don't consider it very useful for this, or the credentials, or the poster, or other supports that they have. But yeah, that is the main exam page that again, I hope that you go through it. And something very important to know is this is where it was last updated. The last update was on June 21st. If you are studying for a version of exam and you feel that you may not take it before the next version comes off, you might want to check at least what has changed. Microsoft keeps updating the certifications, and even though they don't expire, they do change. You should be able to at least go through the new material and make sure that you don't have any surprises in the exam when you're actually taking it. Study guide. This is the actual study guide that you're going to have. You can see here how you have the certification path that we're going to go through, the actual course, but we also have more documentation. You have the solution architect too, how do you architect this stuff, etc. We are going to go through the last one. You can see here the changelog too for skills that were measured prior and now skills that were measured right now. This is what I mean by the aptitude exam. This is when it says when something is going to start being tested or not being tested. English version is going to be the first one. Then the last ones are going to be localized eventually. If you are taking this exam in any other language, keep that in mind. The English deadline might not be the same for you. Specific to the exam, You should have some familiarity with the Power Platform. I found this exam again because I had experience with Power BI and Power Automate. Those were way easier for me than they would have been otherwise. Pages and app were a little bit more daunting, but yeah, if you don't have any experience with the Power Platform, you might just consider spending more time. You might just consider making sure that you understand how they work and developing your own solutions. Maybe you need something for your portfolio. Microsoft offers a lot of good resources for both students and people looking to improve their skills. If you have the time, it's always good to create your own. Maybe you want to create a little Power BI dashboard with a page that is powered if you have a certain stuff triggered by Power Automate into a database. That is totally possible. Just a recommendation out there, if you have the passion and the time, it is always good and will make it easier to pass the exam because you actually use the product. But again, this is also a beginner exam. I wouldn't invest that much time into it if your only goal is to pass this exam. These are the skills that you need to go through. Business value, as I mentioned, foundational concepts, you're going to go components and each of the components here. Then you're going to go into Power BI, that is probably one of the smallest amounts. Then Power Apps is going to take a good chunk of this exam, almost a quarter of it. Power Automate is also going to take a small chunk, and then Power Pages is going to take 5%. It is a very small component in the exam. And then you have AI authoring experience that it's just Microsoft way of saying how do we use ChatGPT models for this. Through Microsoft Power Platform in the business value, as you can see here, you go into how you build applications, how you can automate processes, automate apps, Power BI. The names are very, very obvious of what they do, but there is a lot of detail that goes into it, and that's where you get 9 hours of content. For extending solutions, you will also talk about how dynamics, the database, and AI and teams in all of them are included here and how you can use them to support our platform. You are going to go into some administration and governance. It's good to have some familiarity with cybersecurity here, at least basic concepts, in my opinion. How Power Platform administer centers and portals and different data privacy stuff. For foundational components, Dataverse, it's everywhere. As AI, you should at least have a very conceptual understanding what it is and how you can create tables, columns, and relationships in the database. That's something very new. By new, I mean the last year or two. It is something that was in beta for the longest time. And there is very few people that have an actual practical experience with the database. That is why it's also a little bit more complicated to find training resources in it. But Microsoft also offers a lot of resources on their own. You can look into that as well. Power BI is probably the most popular by far product in this suite. Businesses usually are either Tableau or Power BI. You should have, if you have worked in a professional environment, at least some experience using a Power BI dashboard. Even if you have not built one, it is very easy to go from a user to an actual maker, in my opinion. At least easier than if you have never touched Power BI. Power Apps, the heavy lifter in this certification, is going to go into the difference between Canvas and model-driven apps. You want to have a very, very good understanding of those differences because they're going to be tested everywhere. How do you build a Canvas and a model-driven app? What are the limitations of the model-driven app versus the Canvas app, etc. Power Automate, it lists a lot of stuff, but you can see that not a lot of the exam is actually focused on that. If you have used it, better. If you have not used it, it's all fine. Just try to get a little bit familiar with it. If you're not familiar with how automation and ETL processes work, you may want to spend at least some time into it. And how it integrates with basically everything. How can you use Power Automate Mobile and the Power Automate portal? For Power Pages, it is use cases for templates, how do you share data with others, how does that compare with apps, especially the model and canvas apps. There is quite a bit of overlap there. You just want to make sure that you can answer the question appropriately, so you don't get points deducted from there. Then you have the other new part of the exam. Again, by new, I mean the last 2 years. AI experience that is going to take at least 10% of your exam. Copilot is everywhere, and you are going to notice you are going to get something, or how you create a dashboard through Copilot in Power BI. Can you create a Canvas app in with Copilot? Can you get at least a template? All those questions are going to be answered. AI Builder is a very, very big part of that. And the self-study option is the one that we're going to go next. But you can see here, you have a Microsoft Q&A. You have how do you get trained, if you prefer a structured course. There is documentation here. So if you have any questions and you don't find an answer online, most of the time, anybody that talks about it is going to be looking into the official documentation and then somewhere republishing or just repackaging it to make it a little bit better and easier to understand to other people. Like what I'm basically doing here. I'm not telling you anything new. I'm just going through this with you, and you have all these resources in one place in a hopefully not that long video. But just let you know, this is the actual source of truth. What you should refer to if you have any doubt, you get conflicting opinions. The official documentation is always going to be the most up-to-date one, and also the best one in the level of detail that you're going to have. You have here a change log since the last time. You can see here how there is a lot of no changes, no percentage changes. You have here the Power Platform, the Scribe Copilot Studios, etc. And there's been some minor changes on the Power Platform, the solutions, but on everything else, not a lot. This is the actual fundamentals self-serve landing pad. And this is going to walk you through how you can go to the Power BI Power Platform platform, create Power Apps, Database, and Power BI, etc. You can see here, you have first the business value of Microsoft Power Platform, how you can use that, etc. Something I will notice here is that this had me worried a little bit, but it's not that worrying. There is some funny stuff there. I think this is the only certification at the beginner level where I had this note that the content was partially created with the help of AI. And I'll be honest, it's a little bit subpar sometimes. Has weird wordings here and there, has some mistakes, some typos. What can we do? I can't complain to Microsoft and say we do this all the way from scratch. But just a note there, always refer to the official documentation. It's still the best, very easy to understand and easy to follow resource, but it's for sure not as good as the other exams, like the AI fundamentals or the data fundamentals for that matter, where the content was fully generated by humans, I hope at least, or heavily reviewed at least. This one, at least when I took the exam, was mixed material. You will sometimes get confused, not often, but it's something to notice in my experience that you may not, you may be a little bit confused sometimes. You may want to go back into the wording and go to whatever source this is pulling from. In fundamental components, well, the components of Power Platform, you will go into how to describe each of them, including the database. Then how you build applications with Power App is going to tell you the difference between Canvas and more applications, how you build them. Knowledge checks are very important. I would strongly recommend you to do the knowledge checks, even if they can be a little bit annoying. Make sure to just take them and get that 100% so you're confident on your capability of describing this. Automation with Power Automate is one of the longest modules, ironic, because again, it is one of the areas where you get tested the least. You are going to get Cloudflow, how you can do automated scenarios, how you can do process mining, how you can create a flow with Copilot too, and the business value. Power BI is one of the smallest. You will get how to build a dashboard. If you have done dashboards in Power BI, this is going to be a piece of cake. Then how you demonstrate the capabilities of Microsoft Pages is also one of the smallest ones. There is a big emphasis on how you use Copilot to streamline the process. And finally, the AI tool of it, where you're going to go into Copilot Studio, how you can create a basic Copilot, what are the use cases for these bots, AI builder, etc. The last part I want to cover is the practice assessment. This is 50 questions that you can go through and practice for the exam. It's going to be in this format. You build a Canvas app. The Canvas app is tied to a Microsoft SQL Server database. And you need to add a control that allows users to modify the values for each column of a Bologna table. What should you use? It's an edit form. And the best part of this is that you cannot only test your own understanding, but you can go to these resources, even if you get the question wrong. I'm going to go to the next one and probably get it wrong in purpose to show you, but you actually get the link to the Microsoft documentation for that. I'm going to go to the next answer. And the company uses Microsoft Power Platform, and then I have two controls that can be connected to a data source. I'm just going to put two form and bottom and check your answer. I got form well, I didn't get this one well, it was gallery. And there you go, it's going to explain you what you need to select in the data source, and the gallery displays the rows of the data source. This one can be used to the data to be saved, but it's not linked to the data source. That is why it was wrong. And the screen is also not linked to the data source. And you can do that with every single question. I would strongly recommend you to at least take this twice. There is an 80% that they recommend you to have. That is my recommendation too. Have an 80% here, and you will be strongly confident that you can pass the exam. All right, that is everything for this video. This is one of my new videos, and I will try to be here more often. I will try to post very often. As I usually say, if you find this useful, please give me a like, put a comment. I appreciate any kind of feedback that you may have. And yeah, I hope that you pass this certification if you're looking forward to it. And I really hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.